My name is James Cameron. No, not this James Cameron, this James Cameron. I grew up in Coney Island, Brooklyn, New York. Oh my goodness, what a time it was. I now live in Virginia, and over the last 15 years, I've been portraying an 18th century man of color by the name of John Wallison. I also worked in radio broadcasting for over 15 years. I also played briefly, very briefly, in the NBA. It all started when I was 13 years old. Yes, that's me at 13. I was a handsome individual, wasn't I? But before all of that, I had another passion. I loved Rolls-Royces. Well, a few years ago, I accomplished my dream. I purchased a 1985 Rolls-Royce Silver Spur. And that's where the nightmare began. But it was through trial and error that I discovered that there was a way to actually purchase these cars and maintain them that could save the buyer of future cars like this thousands of dollars. Now that is the sound of power. Let's take a trip. Come on, come along with me. I have now taken that knowledge and will now share it with you. My name is James Cameron, and I want to welcome you to the Rolls-Royce and Bentley University Buyer's Guide. Let's start class. We filled up, and now what we're going to do, we're going to take a little trip back over the bridge. Come on. But let me tell you something that a lot of people do not know. There has been very little change in these cars, believe it or not. Let's take the engine. A 6.75, sometimes it's stated as a 6.25 engine, a 6.75, or 6 3/4 engine. But the bottom line is that this is exactly the same engine that came about after the Silver Cloud in 1959. That was when that engine was first introduced. And it's the same transmission, even though now they've gone to a 4-speed transmission, but it is a General Motors transmission. So what is that saying? That's saying that these cars are not as difficult to maintain as people think. They're just not. If you get any mechanic that is literally worth their salt, they will be able to work on this type of car. Now, just like everything else, there are certain specialties that is needed to know to be able to work on a Rolls-Royce or a Bentley motor car. The problem is that, yeah, if you have to do something like that, well, it's going to cost you a pretty penny. But let me tell you the good news. The good news is that these engines are rock solid. If you just do your basic maintenance, your changing of the oil, changing of the fluids, making sure, of course, that there's coolant, these engines will run and run and run. Period. End of story. Well, hello class. I want to thank you for attending once again. Make sure that you click on our subscribe button, that you give us the thumbs up, and that you ring that bell, so that when future videos do come out, you, my class, will be the first to know about them. I want to start out this segment by showing you how things can be done with your car that will not cost you the kind of money that most people think it would. I'm here with Susan Price. We've become good friends. Yes. We've known each other now for about 5 months.
Yes. Hi guys, I'm Susan Price from Furniture Magicians. We're located in Newport News, Virginia. I've been working on this vehicle with James, his beautiful Rolls-Royce, and we've been doing the interior wood strips, refinishing those, and it's definitely a doable thing. It makes a huge difference in the appearance of your car. If you'd like to give us a contact me at www.furnituremagicians.com or send me an email on my old Hotmail account, furnituremagicians@hotmail.com.
It's odd how I met her. I needed my wood panels fixed. All 4 of them were bad. They were chipping and cracking, which is normal for these cars, and certainly normal for the years, anywhere from 15 years and above, and this car is 35 years old officially. And so I called around to different places, and all they had to hear was Rolls-Royce, which meant prices started at least at $200. There was one individual who will remain nameless who wanted to charge me literally $310 for each panel, telling me that each panel would take him 3 hours to do. So that's 3 times 4, that's 12 hours, and that's where the money came from. My next call was Susan. So we actually stayed on the phone for a good 20 minutes, which automatically was a good sign. And when I told Susan that I had a Rolls-Royce, Susan said,
I've never worked on one before.
Not only had she not worked on one, she had not even worked on a car, right?
No.
Right, you've done yachts?
Oh yeah, yachts, super yachts, houses.
That's right. So I figure if she's good enough for a super yacht, okay, she's certainly good enough for my Rolls-Royce. And when I saw what she did, I was absolutely, positively blown away. She did such a tremendous job. And this is what I'm trying to tell you. You can have these cars. You can have these cars serviced. You just have to do research. Because if you're willing to let the naysayers tell you, oh, it's a Rolls-Royce and it takes all of this doing and you're gonna have to spend all this money, guess what? You're gonna miss out on an absolutely unbelievable experience. So, what I wanna do now is to kind of go through the car and let Susan, in her own way, explain some of the things that we did. So let's do that.
Okay. Well, James, to begin with, we had to sand everything down because it was all chippy.
Right.
Then we found out we had to chip off the chippy before we could get to the sanding part. So we got it started with sanding, but we had to tape all of this, and we were taping up underneath of this as much as we could, or flipping the tape. And then we took from there, we started wrapping. We wrapped your windows, we wrapped all the bottom of the door. And so all of this was just protected as much as we could. And then we just continued with the sanding and the chipping off until we got all the finish down to where we were back to the actual mahogany and walnut and burl. You've got burled Chinese elm in here. So this is beautiful. And when we first started doing it, it was kind of a grayish color is about the best I can say. It's just worn from where the water and the rain had gotten on it. So we went on and we got all of this cleaned up, and we did that on all 4 of them. And then we started layer by layer, spraying on and wiping on stain. And the first layer, of course, once we got it sanded, and we do move our sand grades up from, we start at 150 and we end up about 600 grit. I just wish you could feel this because it feels amazing, and that's what we go for. You have to put a certain amount of stain on there and top coat and undercoat, and which we did. There was like 3 layers of undercoat once we got the stain on, and then we started doing the spraying of the top coat on it. And this actually has about 6 layers of top coat, but it's not so much the layers of top coat, it's the thickness. So we were spraying it very lightly. It was extremely hot the week that James brought the vehicle over. So we had to have it tinted and shadowed so that it wouldn't dry too fast. So we had to do very light coats. And when I say light coats, I mean we were spraying it like zip, zip, done. And it took about that long to do it, but we just kept kind of rotating. We started rotating around the vehicle because we had everything at the same level of finish. And we just kept doing that, and we had to do that for about 3 days before it actually finished up and dried through. But anyway, we ended up with this beautiful finish. You can see the grain line again, and it all just pops. And everything came out really clean. We did have a couple places where we had to take a razor blade to clean down around the window. So we were also going to do the tray tables at some point. And on here you can see some of the crackling on this finish. There's nothing that was wrong, it's just that it's old, and the finish that they were using back in those days just kind of crackled. But we'll be redoing that and getting all of these marks off of it. And those were in actually very good shape, so there's no rush on those compared to the rest of it. Okay, so we're inside the vehicle now and looking at this dashboard. And many of you will find that this is exactly how your dashboard and other sections of your vehicle are going to look with this particular finish on it. So the wood expands and contracts with heat and cold, and that's what causes these cracks in here. The lacquers that were used years ago had a few extra chemicals in them that really did not allow that expansion. So that's what you've got going on with the cracking, in addition to it's just old. And at some point you sometimes have to redo it anyway, but there's not a good way to salvage this in a car to keep it from doing that. So the lacquers that we have now they have more alcohol base in them so that they do not crack as early on as this does. And as we know, this vehicle is about 35 years old, so it's going to last you a lifetime once you have it done. But when you take, what I want you to do is take your fingernails and rub across the back end of it, and you'll feel those ridges. And right now this one is still intact, but once they start getting really loose and they'll start popping, that's really when you're at the point you need to have it redone. Otherwise you're going to start having damage to the wood that's underneath of it. Also, I did want you to note, and I know again that there were some photos taken about this burling in here, this stuff. That's the money. That's where you realize they have put in the better pieces of wood in this. This is what in England they would call a no fill or a no wax, because this has never been tampered with. This wood is exactly as they took it off the tree. It's as perfect as it can be. So you've got the better pieces, the better cuts of wood in here to begin with, and then you've got a beautiful finish on it, and you just bring it right back to life.